Hello and welcome to Career Track by Climate Connect, a series where we explore the journeys of people building careers in the climate space. I'm Harsha and welcome to this episode. So, we started the podcast to help students and young professionals to understand the climate landscape and know where they fit in to be able to contribute, right? So, today we have with us Anuj, who's the founder of Alsisar Impact. Alsisar Impact is an impact advisory and investment firm in India working at the intersection of capital, policy, and entrepreneurship to scale purpose led businesses. Anush, thank you so much for taking out the time today for us.
Equally a pleasure and such an exciting moment to be able to talk to you.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us here today. So maybe we can just start off with a little introduction. If you can, briefly introduce yourself, your current role, and what Alsisa does.
Yeah, so I'm founder of Alsisar Impact. So as you rightly mentioned, that we work at the intersection of impact investing, venture building for local indigenous people, and advocacy of the similar community and other things as well. So our larger motive of having Alsisar Impact existing is that we would like to have some kind of a like a fundamental change in the way people perceive impact, climate, or gender as well. Many times we see that we all are talking about different things, but at a very high level 360-degree orbit. But if we see the overall ecosystem, it is far more complex and real than what we are imagining. It is not a PowerPoint play. It's not even a, let's say, a kind of a, I will say, Excel or ChatGPT play. No ChatGPT or AI can solve climate. So that with that intent, we are going onto the ground, learning from them, and then co-creating some kind of a like I will say ecosystem where they are owning and leading the way, like in terms of the climate change. So indigenous local people are at the base of whatever the kind of things that we are building in.
Right, makes sense. So, Anuj, were you always about working in climate or in impact space, or was there a major pivot that you had to take in your career
Yeah.
to come to this?
I started out into, I will say, hardcore financial advisory, then got into merger acquisitions, got into $1 billion of different transactions and others. And that was a tipping point, and I realized that as a person, I was not moving forward. Like I can talk about money, it was moving forward, but as a person, my health was not very great, both physically and mentally. And I was not kind of able to foresee myself doing these things for the rest of my life. Started back in my journey of coming back to India and in South Asia and other things. So people say in our career we are going bigger. We are saying we are going smaller and focused. So today, if you ask, like this whole journey also have its own learning curve, and today we have far more clearer vision of why we are doing what we are doing, and we are very content with that.
Great. So what made you start Alsisar? Like, what was the motivation behind starting Alsisar? What were the gaps that you saw in the Indian market, in the Indian ecosystem that made you start this?
You see, they are very simple. Like I love data, so just top 10 families in India own 30% of Indian GDP. Just 10 families, primarily 10 people, and we are a country of 140 crore people.
Yeah.
So this kind of a crazy inequality also means the narratives are built around these 10 people. But what if even one family out of 10 get into issues? Let's say one of their child is not able to do the right kind of decisions in terms of how the business is done. Or let's say one of the business house fails for some other reasons as well. It will affect the entire country.
Yeah.
And that is not something which I think is good for us. It's a concentration risk we are talking about. The same way, if you see even the startup ecosystem, we say we are world's third largest startup ecosystem, whether we are talking climate, we are talking about AI, we are talking about health, whatever. At the same time, if you see, we are the same people who are funding every single time. So just 3 cities in India, and that's a very clear, visible thing. You go to Inc. 42 or anywhere, more than 75% of the funding comes in just 3 cities. And in that 3 cities as well, just handful of communities. And that is, again, a concentration. So we are talking about similar models getting funded every single time. And that's where we went into a more bigger, like I will say, a challenging question to ourselves: is this the equitable growth we are talking about? And that's why we came up with something very simple but innovative or radical. We said something called place-based lighthouse investing or venture building, where we are saying consciously we will back a woman, consciously we are backing a person who is indigenous, consciously we are backing an LGBTQ, consciously we are backing a Dalit or a minority. So if I go to Kashmir, we are consciously saying we will only back somebody who owns and leads a venture which is primarily founded by Kashmiri. Same way, if I'm Maharashtra, I will only back a Marathi. If I'm in Nagaland, I will only back a Naga person. So that's the larger genesis. And as Alsisar Impact, as a name, if you ask, Alsisar is the name of my grandparents, and it is also symbolizing going back to the roots.
Makes sense. So the focus is not more on sector, but more on the geographical location and the communities in those places, right?
Yeah, and it also is a very beautiful intersection of different things. So suppose if we are talking about Latur in Maharashtra, which is also one of the drought-prone area, and lots of challenges we talk about it. What if there is one local person who is guided in terms of venture and they make $100 million startup? They are going to change the entire landscape of how Latur looks like. Now we have, in spite of Maharashtra being the richest state of India, so-called, we have the farmer suicide, which only happens here. There's no farmer suicide in poor states like Bihar, other places as well.
Yeah.
Or we can talk about other things. So why it is so? So the socio-economic thing is divided. And we are very open in this. Lots of people kind of have a way of kind of covering that out. We say it's important to speak about it. It's important to discuss it. And let's learn from this whole thing as well.
Right. So, like most of the audience of this podcast is targeted towards young professional students, right, who want to get into impact space. So for them, can you just they may not know what exactly an impact investment or advisory firm does, right? So if you can just help us understand the scope of what you do with these ventures.
Absolutely. For us, we have simplified definitions because we don't want things to be so complicated that nobody want to actually come or want to actually contribute in a meaningful way. So we say social entrepreneurship is just three words. It is about social justice, it is about social impact, and economic resilience. That's it. Very simple. And in terms of criteria, also we have made it very clear that if you are talking about the larger focus, we are talking about a theme which is very, very simple. We are talking about fresh food, fresh air, and fresh water. That's our main focus area.
So you have worked with a lot of startups, right? So what according to you is the hardest part of working with these purpose-driven startups, ventures?
So if you see, like in a long run, the purpose-driven startup will be actually be surviving far more, or they have a better chance to survive than a startup which is primarily there to build it, sell it, and go away. Because purpose-driven means I have a mission to run. I have a reason to do what I'm doing. And that whole thing is going to be very, very big differentiator space in terms of how I'm building things. And in that aspect, it is very important that we are very clear why we have started. So if you are a youngster you're talking about, or maybe somebody else, you have to question why you want to do this, and then the how will come later. But if you are not clear about why, we are going all over the place. And venture building is not about just doing it for the sake of yourself. You are talking about a community. You are talking about a team that you are building. You're talking about a little bit of a larger reason why you exist.
Makes sense. I see that a lot of these startups, they suffer from some common challenges, which is, let's say, pricing or, um, uh, the market is not developed still for them, for their product solution, right? So, like, are you also experiencing these sort of challenges? And if yes, then, like, are you working towards it as well?
So if you see, we are working on all the manners because if my money is on table or stake with Mr. Billy's ventures, we are backing them with all manners. But One of the fundamental things that we need to be clear about it is that majority of startups today are trading models.
Hmm.
They are actually not doing actual work.
Hmm.
Like you can talk about Zepto, you can talk about Zomato, you can talk about Swiggy, you can have plethora of models.
Correct.
Like how much of trading models I can actually sustain as a society? It's going to be bleeding. But who is going to take care of the, I will say, producers? Producers are farmers, producers are artists, producers are creative people, producers are climate change activists. Where they are in the picture. And then we say farmers are leaving farming because it is not sustainable. The only people who are earning money is the traders, like in terms of the trading models we are talking about, not the per se, the communities or something.
Yeah.
But this needs to be having a way that we actually honor and actually cultivate a way that producers are getting the right price.
Yeah, and I think that's also because in trading, the margins are higher, right? So it's bound to be that a lot of players will enter that space.
But 95% if they are all trading models, you can talk about the unicorns of India.
Yeah.
Majority of unicorns are all trading models. Great. Now, technically, I can talk about Zomato, Swiggy, Zepto, everybody. But the day the person who's actually producing the food grain, they stop doing it. What
Yeah.
Zepto or Zomato will do? Tell me. If the
Yeah.
restaurants are not existing, what Zomato will do?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, we need to understand and take care of the people who are making food, whether it is a farmer or a restaurant person. It's an art.
Yeah.
And it needs lots of perseverance, efforts, and other things. Like if you have to stand in the sun for 10 hours and do farming, and in spite of that, you can't survive, the farmers are going to just leave it. Like we are talking about climate change that they need to take care. We are talking about fresh food they need to have. They should not put fertilizer, pesticide. They need to take care of the climate variables in terms of monsoon and this. Why they have to be like uncomfortable with all these things? The best is they will say, okay, let me leave the farming. I'll come to a city. I'll do a white collar job. I'll be in an AC environment and earn 10,000 rupees, which is fine for me, which is actually better.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot
And
of
that is
sense.
something, which, as youngsters, like people like us all, have seen the world where the sky was blue, the food was good, the water we could have drank from tap. Now we have commoditized water already. We already commoditized food. Now we are in the process of commoditizing air as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of these startups coming up in the clean tech space, right? Um, yeah, so that's huge now. So, Anuj, there are a
Yeah,
lot of ventures coming up in the climate space, right? Be it agri,
yeah.
be it energy, be it, like all sorts of tech companies are coming up in the climate space. So
Yeah.
what do you think do these startups need more of? What sort of gaps are there in the current ecosystem, which let's say only climate startups face and not the other startups? And yeah, like, and what kind of more support can we then bring into this space to help these startups? I mean, funding is
So
there
one of
for
the
sure,
yeah,
but more than funding,
yeah.
maybe what else?
So first of all, like let me start with funding. Like in India, this is the year where we have got least funded
Hmm.
startups. As per Inc. 42 and others, we have just 487 startups which got funded in half year one, right?
Correct.
Which is the lowest number in the last 10 years. And out of that, 60% of the repeat investments. So we are talking about less than 200 new investments in the entire country. It's not a very big number. Anyways, coming in a positive side, if you have to talk about agri, energy, or whatever we are talking about, one important thing which differentiates a climate startup with others is like we are talking about some kind of systematic change which will help us to live better life. And it is an existing challenge which was not existing 20 years, 30 years, or 40 years back. Now it is on the face, and we are talking about people who are aware. And that awareness is a great thing. People are talking about fossil fuels, people talking about like electric vehicles, lots of things, awareness has come in. But at the same time, we are kind of missing out on one very basic thing, that how much of us are having the patience to understand climate in a more holistic, real way. So how many of us have actually seen glacier melting? How the people are facing the problems. Like if I talk about Himalayas, we go as a tourist, we touch upon few points and come back. But have you spent some time to see how much hardships these mountain people are facing today? Like
Mhm.
monsoons first time entered Ladakh in their written history, first time. So Ladakh is a cold desert. Now monsoons coming in and they created havoc there. But at the same time, today we are comfortable because we are in an AC office in front of PC. I say AC PC environment. Everything is controlled. So we feel everything is normal for us. But it's not, because it's going to affect us downstream much more severely than the mountains in long run. In short run, yes, they are facing the problems. Darjeeling faced a cloud burst recently, and similarly, we are finding that Nepal also had flooding and others. But downstream, we will be having far more trouble very soon. So it's important that we need to understand climate by going in the ground and picking up the basics of it rather than talking about chat gpt or reading through lots of ppts and all. It's not going to solve anything. And if you're building enterprise and if you're youngsters, the best thing you can do is you can disrupt the so-called millennial models. Most of the millennial models were done on ppts or excel sheets, but you all are like super filled with energy. You are enthusiastic, curious people. Come on the ground and see experiential learning is far more deeper and longer in terms of your own depth that you can build.
Yeah, makes sense. What's your take on innovation in the climate space? Because I see there is a lot of debate going on how we are only we're not creating new things, we're not being
Yeah,
innovative enough.
yeah.
So what's your take on that?
So if you see today, like world over, not just US, because I'm taking a majority funding in getting into artificial intelligence right now. There's no funding coming adequately in education, healthcare, anywhere. It's going into artificial intelligence. So this the biggest guy who runs this AI company in Bay Area. He says AI can easily solve climate change. And I still remember a question which I sent it, and then they never responded back. Was can you actually find a way to stop California wildfires because you are so much good in AI, and they don't have answers.
Hmm.
Because we need to be clear that innovations are great; it needs to be there, but are we comfortable to understand what innovation means,
Hmm.
or we are just repackaging it? Like India is already like very much behind in AI race, but we are very much ahead. If you talk about natural resources, the diversity of people, also the way we understand nature, but are we harnessing that strong foundations that we have? For centuries, we were market leaders in the world.
Hmm.
Just for last 300 years, we have lost our way. But are we capitalizing it, or we are just following West just because we have got a different kind of thing? And I always say in a famous way, if iPhone valuation is more than entire India valuation, there's something wrong with the way they are positioning the valuation. Let's talk the same language then. And then if I talk about it, they are just trying to talk about it in a very smart way, repackaging narratives. But that's not
Yeah.
true. So we need to get back that kind of narrative. And that's where like a lot of people are confused that
Yeah.
what is innovation? Everything is good if your valuations are good.
Yeah. I agree. So to
Yeah.
sum it up, you would say that even when you're building and also while you're supporting these ventures, you need to first like understand the context that the solution is coming from, right? And also sort of take accountability, be very intentful with what you're doing and not doing it for the
Yeah.
sake of doing it and because, okay, climate is trending now. Um, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So if I give an example, so this one entrepreneur is there that we backed. He comes from a Dalit community, and he wanted to kind of address a small problem of protein. And we can say why protein is linked to climate and other things. He went to the basics that why somebody has to take a synthetic protein and other things in the name of organic product and other things packaged. He said peanuts in India is the cheapest protein available. And he
Hmm.
went back to his own land, which is primarily in Unnao. And he is from the community, which are primarily landless farmers, and they do farming on the Ganga floodplains. So for 4 months, that particular land is covered in water because
Hmm.
floods are there, and then it recedes, and they do farming there. And they're all marginalized farmers and other things. But they produce one of the most amazing peanuts in the country,
Hmm.
big peanuts, and they're naturally organic because they don't need any fertilizer because floodplains make the soil fertile.
Right.
And he's just came up with a basic thing, which is primarily a peanut butter. And today I can talk about a climate resilience thing for him, climate adaptation as well. At the same time, healthy food. But the same thing, if I have to compare Nutella, now you see it's a palm oil and it is a shitty product. But at the same time, the way it is being packaged, we are also confused as a consumer that what we are getting. And as a youngster, many times people are becoming aware and they are questioning the ingredients and other things. But as a ecosystem, we have to still evolve in terms of the transparency of the inputs which are going and also from where it is coming.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Anuj, for this insight. I mean, it's been a little helpful for me as well. Um, so now I wanted to sort of digress a little bit and shift this conversation because, I mean, as I said, this podcast is for people who want to make a career in the climate space, right? So
Yeah.
if I say that I'm a 23-year-old, right, and I'm passionate about getting into the impact space, so I mean, there are a lot of opportunities now, right? But how do I choose between, say, working in an NGO or working in a impact consulting firm or with a startup in the impact space or starting up myself? Like, so how should I go about it?
A very important thing is that as a youngster, you need to choose the path which is also sustainable for you. Let's
Hmm.
not get into a romanticizing or fantasizing different things. You need to see if you need some kind of financial support, definitely do a job. It doesn't matter whether it is NGO or advisory or something. That's the first thing. But second is, if you really want to build a career, that is built on patience and understanding. So, unlike uh, West, in India, we push our things to keep continuing the studies in successive intervals. That means I do my schooling, then I got into college, then I get into my B school, then I get into some other things. I've never taken a break to understand what I want to do, actually. And if
Hmm.
you go to US, you go to Europe, there is a very important facet of taking a break, understanding what you want to do, and go back. And they do not allow MBA students without an experience. But in India, every single or majority of MBAs are primarily without an experience. You get it.
Correct.
So we need to find a way that if you have the luxury of taking a break and going on the ground in whatever form, please do that. And there is also a very important thing. Don't get into a tag of doing internships or fellowship for the sake of it. You need to see whether it is of interest to you. Are you getting something? So if you're getting a lots of learning, go for it. It doesn't matter whether somebody's paying or not. But if you are doing it for the sake of tag, and suppose there's a big bank and they just make you sit in a voucher kind of thing and they just stick you it out, or let's say they put you into a climate department, but you're not doing anything, but you are getting a tag. Now that time is gone. Like 10 years back, 20 years back, everybody was wanting to get into tags of corporates and others, but that's now sticking actually. Like
Yeah.
to give you a sense, India's number one B school, 20% of the kids actually apply to us for internship.
Yeah.
And the reason is we need to find a way that they are wanting to understand the real side of it. So that's the point that we are talking about.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I agree with this so
Yeah.
much because even in my friend circle, there are a couple of people who do their undergrad, and then straight away do their MBA, and then end up at a VC or a consulting firm, and now their role is to help entrepreneurs who've been building their startups for quite a while, right? So
Yeah.
there is this experience and knowledge mismatch there.
Yeah. So we have to, as a society, we need to ask each other, like, how much time we will bluff each other. Like, I have lots of friends who are in the VC or private equity funds. They have never been an entrepreneur and they have never been on the field as well. And even if they've gone in a guided tour, which is fine, great, do it. But mind you, you are fund managers of somebody else's money. It's not your money. So if you talk about a VC fund, you are managing somebody else's money. So it's very precious. You are doing a job. So first of all, remove the title of investor. Investor is when you invest your own money. Put down the title of fund manager. You're managers. Let's face it. Don't glorify the investing. Anyways, now if you go to LinkedIn, it's a very nice trend which has come in the last couple of years. If you announce a deal, you don't get too much likes now. Earlier, as a fund manager, if you used to announce, thousands of likes used to come. But now people are aware of it. What's big deal?
Yeah.
You will again fail.
Yeah.
So it's not about how much you can invest. Giving money is very easy. I can just distribute all the money. But to build that money into something formidable is something very important.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's say if
Yeah.
I am a 23-year-old again, and I want to enter. I'm very headstrong on trying out impact investing and climate finance, right? So what are the most
Yeah.
practical entry points for me? If I'm just starting out my career, maybe I've
Yeah.
had like a year or two
Yeah.
years of experience. How can I start?
So I'll give you an example of this one fellow of us who worked with us for 6 months. She came from France. She was on the ground in the Himalayas and other things. And right now, she's in the top at DFI, Development Financial Institution, as a fund manager working. And why they preferred her over others is because she had ground experience. So whether you get into impact investing or you start your own thing, we need to know the sector. And that's a key for everybody. Like the people who build the businesses, like the Birlas, the Bajajes, or
Yeah.
the Wipros and other things, they all have got ground experience. So if you have to visualize yourself, and you are at a, I will say, it's a much more stronger position than a lot of people who are past the age of, let's say, 35 and others who are still lost. You have a luxury to kind of experiment. And if you're experimenting, profession is not built till the age of 30. It starts
Yeah.
at 30.
No, I think that's going to be very insightful for people listening in. But also, I wanted to understand, you've emphasized a lot on working on ground, right? But if there are other sort of technical and soft skills that you think are non-negotiable for this particular space, what would those be?
Having lots of empathy. Like climate space means you need to be empathetic. You can't be having ego to think that I can conquer climate or I can conquer the nature.
Hmm.
Please, let's face it. Like even if Elon Musk is there, he's going to die one day very soon. Right? He can't reverse the death. Whether if he claims himself to be God, he's not. The same way, there's a very clear cycle of understanding different things. So one of the things that we have thought, like as a country as well, that if you speak very good English, you will succeed in certain things. Or if you have certain kind of a polished soft skills, you will get into certain other aspects of profession. But mind you, today, if you're a white collar job, you will be getting more impacted through technology or AI than the blue collar people.
Great.
And I live in South Bombay, and I know a carpenter job is more like sought after today than finding somebody who can actually run Excel sheets.
Right. Thank you so much for that. We're almost coming to the end of the podcast. So
Yeah,
I just have like quick 4 questions, 4 to 5 questions in a rapid
yeah,
fire format.
yeah.
Right. So the first one is, which book, podcast, or mentor, like which resource or mentor sort of influence your worldview the most?
There are lots of people, lots of books as well. I can name it for the sake of it as well. But I think one of the biggest open book I had was when I was in the Himalayas and I was having this indigenous person, and he did not had any formal education.
Hmm.
And this guy had worked as a porter in Indian Army, and he had done lots of different things, but not formally educated. And he destroyed the whole notion of me in terms of what is education or knowledge means. Now, this boy is a brilliant botanist because he knows every single wild plants in the region of Ladakh. He also knows what is glacier melting looks like, what is glaciers look like, what is what is the power of community, and also what is happiness all about.
Yeah.
And today he's a proud entrepreneur of us. He's a portfolio of us, and that kind of open book we are learning. And we go around with him. I spend lots of time with him, stayed with him. He stayed with me in Bombay, and many times we have traveled together. And I think that kind of a conscious experiential learning is what I would be preferring that we all learn coming together. Yeah.
Great. Okay, moving on to the next question. So if
Yes.
you had a magic wand, right, to solve one particular problem in climate first, what would you do? Which problem would you sort of remove first?
I'll switch off ACs for one day.
Okay.
But then let's talk about climate.
All right. The
Just one
next,
day.
got it. Okay. So the next question is a personal ritual or a habit that keeps you going.
So I always, in the morning, I wake up and say hi to the sun. That is
Hmm,
something which I never failed ever. Like as much as possible. If the sun is not there, that's a different thing. But I always say hi to the sun
great.
as a
Thank
sense
you.
of gratitude or whatever. It helps me.
Great. Sounds good. So we're almost ending the podcast, right? So what advice would you leave these young professionals and students who are listening in, who are trying to enter this climate space, right? So what advice would you have for them?
Like challenge today, if I say I'm starting with the challenge, is that we have the least jobs in the last 50 years
Hmm.
available to the youngsters. But that is also an opportunity to disrupt. So I
Hmm.
was in New York, and thankfully, or not thankfully, whatever we say, 1 out of 3 students was out of job. There was no placement. Even institutions like Harvard, Stanford, they have lots of people who are without job. So that also means we need to think out of the box of what we are doing and why we are doing. And in terms of advice, if you ask, like advice is the most free commodity in the world. I don't want to talk about advice, but I think we all have to become friends to each other. We should have fun as well. So
Right.
for some reason, we have lost the art of fun as friends or communities. So please go out, have fun with yourself, have friends, and don't forget the world is a beautiful place. Let's not just talk about doomsday thing. We are living, and we are going to continue living for many years happily. So build a happy world around. And believe me, majority of people are not going to be happy if you're happy. So they will be worried how you could be
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Anuj, for all of this, for your time here. I think all of what you said is going to land deeply with people listening in. And this brings us to the end of our episode. Just a quick thought. So I really liked how you said that it's not about being poor versus rich, right? It is for your own well-being that you need to start focusing on these terms. So yeah, I think yeah, it really helped me to sort of map out my thoughts. And I hope it does with other people listening in as well. Um, so yeah, to everyone listening and watching, I hope this helped you learn a little bit more about impact investing. And if you're thinking about it as a career option, you should go ahead. As
Absolutely.
Anuj said, yeah. So that's it. Thank you so much for sticking with us till the end.